Opening scene. Dramatic music swells over archival footage of London's bustling streets fading into shadowy vaults beneath the Bank of England. Close-ups of gleaming gold bars stack endlessly. Narrator's voice, deep and urgent, pulls the viewer in. Narrator. Imagine this. Deep below the chaotic pulse of London, where commuters thunder by oblivious overhead, hides a fortune that could topple empires. Over 5,100 tons of gold, 400,000 bars worth more than $250 billion. That's not just wealth, it's power incarnate, enough to forge a metropolis rivaling San Francisco from the ground up. But as the world's largest gold vault guards its secrets, one chilling question lingers. What if this glittering hoard isn't a monument to prosperity but a buried relic of plunder? A royal legacy of theft that still echoes through global finance today. Buckle up. We're about to unearth the pirate's path to the Bank of England's throne. Transition. Cut to misty 16th century maps of Europe unrolling, Spain's colonies glowing in gold hues. Tense strings build suspense. In the shadowed annals of history, England wasn't the juggernaut we know. Perched on Europe's fringes, it was a scrappy island nation, scraping by while Spain bathed in colonial splendor. Picture Spanish galleons slicing through Atlantic waves, their holds brimming with treasure ripped from the New World. One silver mine alone in Potosi, Bolivia, spewed forth riches equivalent to $60 billion today, fueling King Philip II's opulent courts and armadas. Spain's monopoly on gold and silver seemed unbreakable, a river of wealth flowing one way, from the Americas straight to Madrid. But envy breeds rebellion. Enter the British crown, eyeing that golden stream with predatory intent. They didn't build mines or conquer continents overnight. No, their strategy was bolder, bloodier, sanctioned piracy on the high seas. This wasn't rogue banditry. It was statecraft disguised as adventure. Queen Elizabeth I, sharp-eyed and unyielding, issued letters of marque, official licenses turning merchants into marauders. These privateers could raid enemy vessels legally, pocketing the spoils while funneling a cut back to the throne. Officially, the crown's hands stayed clean. Unofficially, they orchestrated the heist of the century. Scene shift, reenactment of stormy seas, wooden ships clashing under lightning, focus on a fierce captain, Francis Drake, his eyes alight with ambition. At the heart of this shadowy operation stood Francis Drake, the man Spain dubbed ___0__, the Dragon. In 1577, he slipped from England's shores with a clandestine mandate from Elizabeth herself. 5 ships, a crew of hardened souls, and a hunger for Spanish gold. Their target, the treasure fleets lumbering home from the colonies. Off Ecuador's rugged coast in 1579, Drake struck like a thunderbolt, seizing the Nuestra Señora de la Concepción, better known as Cacafuego. Its cargo? A staggering haul valued at £500,000 back then, billions in modern terms. Gold candlesticks, emeralds the size of fists, and silver bars that could sink a frigate. But Drake wasn't done. He pushed deeper, ambushing a mule train snaking through Panama's isthmus jungles, caravans laden with bullion bound for Spanish coffers. The pirates gorged on the bounty, but it overflowed. 15 tons of silver buried hastily in the undergrowth, too heavy to haul. Of the 5 vessels that set out, only the Golden Hind limped home in 1580, its decks groaning under the weight of plunder. Investors who backed the voyage? They reaped 4,700% returns, fortunes that minted legends overnight. Philip II, that proud Spanish monarch, seethed in his palaces. He slapped a bounty on Drake's head, 20,000 ducats, millions today. Assassins stalked the seas, but Drake danced through the danger. Back in England, on April 4th, 1581, Elizabeth boarded the Golden Hind in a spectacle that blurred the line between queen and corsair. She knighted him on deck, right amid the salty spoils, a bold endorsement of buccaneering as national policy. Escalation. Montage of forging cannons, shipyards buzzing, epic battle scenes of the Spanish Armada's defeat, fire ships aflame, gales howling. This wasn't mere greed. It was alchemy for empire building. Elizabeth funneled the pirate gold not into jewels or feasts, but into steel and sails. Arsenals swelled, shipwrights hammered through the nights. By 1588, that investment paid dividends in blood and glory. The Spanish Armada, Phillips quote, one fleet of 130 warships, sailed to crush England. But storms and superior British tactics shattered it against rocky shores. Drake's raids had bankrolled the navy that turned the tide, proving privateering was history's original venture capital. Back pirates, not startups, and watch an empire rise. From these salty origins, Britain's gold rush accelerated. Privateers were the blade. Now came the vault. Gold trickled, then poured, transforming a fledgling kingdom into a colossus. Yet the real machinery of accumulation lurked in the East, where commerce cloaked conquest. Transition, fade to exotic ports, spice-laden ships docking in foggy London, maps expand to India, redcoats marching. Fast forward to 1600. King James I, the scholarly monarch behind the revered King James Bible, a tome of faith in every hearth, lent his blessing to a bolder beast, the East India Company. Chartered with a modest 72,000 pounds, this wasn't just a trading outfit. It evolved into a shadow sovereign, a company state devouring Asia's riches. At its zenith, it commanded 260,000 troops, twice Britain's own army. They minted money, enforced edicts, even swung the noose on dissenters. Sovereign in all but name. The tipping point? The 1757 Battle of Plassey, a skirmish in Bengal that cracked open India's jewel box. The company seized tax rights over the subcontinent's wealthiest realm, unleashing an ingenious scam on a civilizational scale. Here's the hidden mechanism, the sleight of hand that drained empires dry. Officials levied taxes from Indian farmers and weavers, their hard-earned rupees. Then, using those very funds, the company bought up cotton, silks, and spices at rock-bottom prices. Ship these treasures to Britain, sell at markup, and watch the profits cascade. A portion flowed straight to London as bullion, but the twist? The British elite, including the Crown and its courtiers, held fat shares in the company. Dividends rolled in, pure gold from colonial veins. It was exploitation squared. Indians toiled for their own coin, which vanished overseas, fueling British mills and mansions. Their economy became a perpetual engine for England's ascent. Over 2 centuries, this siphon extracted wealth worth $45 trillion today, 17 times the UK's modern GDP. James I, that pious patron of Scripture, had ignited the fuse. Under his watch, the company morphed from traitor to tyrant, blending Bible-thumping rhetoric with bare-knuckled robbery. Gold for God and crown, they called it. But beneath the veneer, a relentless hunt for the metal that built banks and broke backs. Build tension. Graphs spike on screen. Gold flows mapping to imperial expansion. Cut to 19th century London, factories belching smoke, pound notes fluttering. As the 19th century dawned, this pirate-tainted hoard crystallized into something unbreakable. In 1821, Britain pioneered the gold standard, tethering the pound sterling to the yellow metal. No more fiat whims. Every note could be swapped for bullion at a fixed rate. The Bank of England, born in 1694 amid wartime debts, became the guardian, its vaults swelling as London morphed into the world's financial nerve center. The pound. It crowned as the global reserve currency, oiling trade from cotton fields to opium dens. Colonies funneled gold inward, backing loans, stabilizing markets, and underwriting an empire where the sun never set. But escalate the stakes. This system wasn't benign. It locked poorer nations into dependency, their silver and spices transmuted into British bonds. Wars were financed on gold promises, Napoleon crushed, India subdued, all on the back of that subterranean shine. By the 20th century, as world wars raged, the bank's reserve stood as a bulwark. Even in defeat's shadow, that 16th century plunder echoed, propping up a battered isle. Modern pivot. Quick cuts to today's London skyline, stock tickers flashing, then back to the vaults. Ominous undertones in the score. Why does this matter now in our era of cryptocurrencies and crashing markets? That massive gold pile beneath Threadneedle Street isn't frozen history. It's a live wire in the global grid. Central banks worldwide eye it warily. China's hoarding, Russia's repatriating, all chasing the stability Britain weaponized centuries ago. With inflation gnawing at fiat currencies and geopolitics fracturing supply chains, gold whispers of resilience. Yet it carries a warning. Today's financial titans, be they Wall Street or Beijing, tread paths paved by Drake's cutlass and the company's ledgers. Inequality's roots run deep. That $250 billion vault reminds us wealth often starts with a raid, not a receipt. Conclusion. Slow zoom out from the gold bars, overlaying imperial maps dissolving into modern finance hubs. Music resolves to a thoughtful crescendo. So as you navigate the markets or ponder your portfolio, remember, the Bank of England's glittering depths aren't just metal. They're a saga of cunning, conquest, and the cold calculus of power. From Elizabeth's knighted pirate to James's chartered thieves, Britain alchemized theft into treasure, birthing the gold standard that still underpins our world. But in this revelation lies a mirror. What hidden hustles fuel fortune today? The dragon's fire burns on, urging us to question the vaults we trust. Subscribe for more unearthing of finance's forgotten fronts, because in gold's glow, the truth always shines through. Imagine a city pulsing with life above ground, towering skyscrapers, roaring traffic, oblivious commuters rushing to their daily grind. But just a few meters below, in the shadowy depths of the Bank of England, a glittering empire slumbers. Over 5,100 tons of gold, worth trillions, stacked like silent sentinels in vaults that could withstand the apocalypse. Yet here's the chilling twist. This hoard isn't Britain's treasure. It's the world's dirty secret, a hidden vault of power that reveals how one nation once ruled the global economy and still pulls the strings today. What if I told you that the fate of currencies, wars, and fortunes hinges on this underground fortress? Buckle up as we dive into the untold saga of London's golden grip. Our story begins in the fog-shrouded alleys of 16th century London, where Queen Elizabeth I, that cunning monarch, forged the first threads of an economic web that would span the globe. Picture Sir Francis Drake, her daring privateer, returning from plundering Spanish galleons laden with New World gold, booty that filled the Queen's coffers and fueled Britain's ascent. She equals Elizabeth I knew the power of precious metal. It wasn't just wealth, it was a weapon. Fast forward to the 19th century, and the pound sterling, pegged unyieldingly to gold since the Bank of England's founding, demanded an ironclad system. Every banknote promised redemption in bullion, turning the bank into a global promise keeper. But sustaining that vow, it required mountains of the stuff, reserves so vast, They reshaped history. As the British Empire swelled like a tidal wave, gold flowed in from every corner. The 1850s Australian gold rush wasn't just a lucky strike down under, it transformed London into the world's insatiable maw for metal. Through imperial taxes, trade routes dominated by the East India Company, they equals British/East India Company, and shrewd merchant fleets, Britain claimed the lion's share. Miners toiled in the outback only for their nuggets to end up stamped in Threadneedle Street. But the real jackpot came later. In 1886, prospectors unearthed the Witwatersrand Basin in South Africa, a subterranean vein so rich it birthed the world's top gold producer overnight. British tycoons, backed by the Crown, seized control of the mines, funneling fortunes back home. By the dawn of the 20th century, the empire's tentacles wrapped around lands yielding over 60% of global output, a monopoly that made rivals seethe with envy. Then, the storms of war accelerated the deluge. The two world wars weren't just battles on fields, they were economic sieges where gold became currency for survival. Allies, desperate for British munitions and ships, shipped their bullion to London in armored convoys, stacking it in the bank's vaults as payment. Even in victory, Britain played hardball, confiscating Axis assets and extracting reparations in gleaming bars. He equals Philip II of Spain would have raged at the irony, his once mighty galleon's legacy now underwriting England's dominance. By 1950, the payoff peaked, 2,543 tons of gold, enough to eclipse modern reserves of nations like China or Russia today. London wasn't just a city, it was the beating heart of the gold standard, dictating prices, brokering deals, and drawing metal from every gold field on earth. But shadows loomed. This influx didn't just build wealth, it bred vulnerability. The Bank of England evolved into the nexus of global finance, a shadowy clearinghouse where the world's elites traded not just gold, but influence. From 1919 onward, the London Gold Fix at the venerable Rothschild and Sons became the oracle of value. Traders in smoke-filled rooms, or later to high-tech screens, set the benchmark twice daily at 10:30 a.m. and 3 p.m., rippling prices across continents. It was theater as much as commerce, a ritual echoing the old imperial courts where a whisper could crash markets or crown kings. Yet beneath the grandeur, necessity birthed a fortress like no other. With gold pouring in faster than it could be guarded, Britain couldn't risk exposure. Enter the 1930s. Europe teetering on war's edge, Luftwaffe blueprints circulating like ghosts. The bank dug deep, literally. At 15 meters below street level, engineers carved 9 vast chambers across 2 subterranean floors, spanning 27,000 square meters. Imagine 4 Wembley pitches buried alive with treasure. Each hall a labyrinth of steel and secrecy, immune to bombs that could level the city above. Visualize it. Walls of gold bars, each 400 troy ounces, 12.4 kilograms of pure allure, valued at hundreds of thousands of pounds apiece. They're palletized in stacks of 80, totaling 1 ton per unit, rising like monolithic towers 2 stories high. Doors, behemoths weighing tons, unsealed by 3-meter keys that demand ritualistic precision. Even the underground yielded. The central line curves awkwardly to skirt this golden abyss, its trains rumbling so near that guards swear they feel the vibrations amid the bars. Millions thunder overhead daily, sipping coffee, scrolling phones, utterly blind to the fortune inches below, a paradox of modern invisibility. As the empire's sun began to set post-World War II, the cracks widened. He equals James I might have marveled at the vault's ingenuity, but his successors faced a grim unraveling. The gold standard, that rigid anchor, started buckling under inflation and decolonization, By the 1970s, economic tempests hit, oil shocks, sterling crises. Britain slashed reserves from 1,300 tons to 650 in a fire sale, desperate to prop up the pound. The knockout punch landed in the late 1990s, courtesy of Chancellor Gordon Brown. Between 1999 and 2002, he offloaded 401 tons, half the remaining stock, at a rock-bottom $275 per ounce. Today, with gold soaring past $2,800, that blunder's branded, quote, a catastrophic loss topping 20 billion pounds. Britain's own stash. A modest 310 tons, ranking 17th globally, eclipsed by Italy, France, even India. So the vault brims with 5,100 tons, yet the UK claims but a sliver. Where did the rest vanish? And whose is it? The answer unveils the intrigue. It's a global safe deposit box stuffed with foreign hoards. Central banks from the U.S. Federal Reserve to the IMF, from Germany to Japan, stash their bullion here, over 30 nations' lifeblood secured in London's bowels. Why entrust a fading empire? It's a cocktail of legacy, logistics, and leverage. History first. 3 centuries. 0 thefts. No heists, no scandals, just unbreachable trust forged in the fires of empire. Infrastructure seals it. London's the liquidity kingpin with $70 billion in daily trades. Sell gold? No clunky bar hauling through tunnels. It's digital sorcery. A keystroke flips ownership in the ledger while the metal stays put. One bar might trade dozens of times daily, ownership ping-ponging via computers, untouched. Speed and safety, unmatched. The LBMA gold price ritual endures as the capstone, evolved from Rothschild's 1919 huddle, now a virtual convocation of titans. At those sacred hours, algorithms and experts converge, etching gold's worth into the global ledger. It's not just pricing, it's power, a daily decree that stabilizes currencies or sparks panics. But why does this matter now in our era of crypto booms, trade wars, and shaky fiat money? Because London's vault is the quiet guardian of the old order, a reminder that gold isn't dead, it's dormant, waiting for the next crisis. As geopolitical fault lines crack, Russia's reserves seized, China's stockpiling in secret, the Bank of England's depths become a flashpoint. What if a cyber attack breaches the digital locks, or a new war demands repatriation? Britain's golden paradox underscores a deeper truth. The financial system we take for granted is built on buried legacies, imperial ghosts that still dictate our wealth. Elizabeth I's shrewd bets, Drake's raids, the empire's grasp, they echo in every ounce stored below. In the end, as you walk London's streets, remember, beneath your feet lies not just metal, but the fragile spine of the world economy. A hidden warning that empires rise and fall, but gold, it endures, patient, gleaming, and utterly unforgiving. The next chapter of this saga, it's being written today. Stay vigilant. The fix is always just a heartbeat away. Imagine a vault buried deep beneath the streets of London, guarded not just by steel and stone, but by centuries of unspoken power. What if the very metal that underpins the world's economy, gold, could vanish into the shadows of an empire that never truly faded? Tonight we uncover how one city still holds the global financial system by the throat, and what happens when trust turns to leverage in a crisis. From the misty docks of 16th century England to the gleaming skyscrapers of today's city of London, the story of gold has always been one of conquest and cunning. It begins with the birth of a pricing ritual that binds the world. Picture the year 1919. Amid the ashes of World War I, a secretive gathering unfolds in the opulent halls of N.M. Rothschild and Sons. Bankers, miners, and traders huddle around a single table, their whispers setting the daily gold fix, a unified price that ripples across continents. Fast forward a century, and that ritual endures as the London Bullion Market Association's benchmark, the LBMA gold price. It's not just numbers on a screen, it's the heartbeat of global trade. Jewelers in the bustling souks of Dubai glance at it to price their wares. Central banks in Beijing and Tokyo use it to calibrate their reserves. Even the rugged miners extracting gleaming nuggets from the earth in the Congo or the Siberian tundra base their fortunes on this London decree. But this is no mere marketplace auction. London's grip extends far beyond valuation. It's the architect of what gold even means on the world stage. Enter the quote _4 standards, the invisible rule book that defines purity, weight, dimensions, and markings for every gold bar traded internationally. A bar must weigh between 350 and 430 troy ounces, clock in at 99.5% purity, and bear the seal of an approved refinery. Stray from these specs, and your metal becomes a pariah, untradeable, worthless in the eyes of global buyers. It's a subtle sovereignty. London doesn't just tell you how much gold is worth. It decides if your gold qualifies as gold at all. This control traces back to the 17th century, when the Bank of England first emerged as the world's premier gold custodian, its vaults swelling with bullion from colonial spoils and royal hoards. What started as a tool for stabilizing Britain's wartime economy has evolved into a monopoly on trust, where billions in value hinge on a nod from the city. To understand the depths of this power, we must journey into the shadowed history of Britain's own golden legacy. The crown jewels, symbols of majesty turned financial lifelines. In the medieval era, English monarchs viewed their regalia not as untouchable heirlooms, but as liquid assets in a precarious game of thrones. When coffers ran dry for crusades or continental skirmishes, kings like Edward III would march their crowns and scepters to Italian lenders in the Low Countries, pawning them for loans at exorbitant rates only to reclaim them in flush times. This pragmatic alchemy peaked under the Tudors. Queen Elizabeth I, that shrewd virgin sovereign, leveraged the spoils from privateers like Sir Francis Drake, raids on Spanish galleons laden with New World gold, to bolster her treasury without dipping into the family silver. Yet, peril lurked. The true catastrophe struck in 1649, following the beheading of Charles I amid the English Civil War. Parliament, fueled by Republican fervor, branded the royal symbols as emblems of tyranny. They dismantled the collection, gems pried loose and auctioned to the highest bidder, gold melted into ingots and recast as coins for Oliver Cromwell's Commonwealth. Centuries of accumulated splendor, forged from conquests spanning the globe, dissolved into the currency of revolution, a stark reminder that even kings' treasures bow to politics. From those ashes rose a phoenix of opulence. Today, the British Royal Collection gleams with over 100 exquisite pieces, adorned by some 23,000 gemstones that whisper tales of empire. The imperial state crown, worn at coronations, alone dazzles with 2,868 diamonds, 17 sapphires, 11 emeralds, 269 pearls, and 4 rubies, many sourced from colonized lands like India and South Africa. Legends nestle within. The Cullinan II, a 317-carat behemoth cleaved from the largest diamond ever found, or the Black Prince's ruby, a spinel brought back by Edward the Black Prince from 14th century crusades. Valuing this hoard is a fool's errand. Experts murmur figures between 3 and 5 billion pounds, but it's priceless by design. The monarchy vows these jewels remain inalienable, locked away as eternal guardians of tradition, never to grace an auction block. Yet as we peel back the velvet curtain, a far more tantalizing secret emerges from the vaults of the Bank of England itself. That fortress on Threadneedle Street, established in 1694 under King William III to fund wars against France, now cradles a staggering 5,134 tons of gold, worth over $400 billion at current prices. But here's the twist that sends chills through international finance. Only 310 tons, a mere 6%, belong to the United Kingdom. The rest? A glittering mosaic of foreign holdings, safeguarded on behalf of nations from Germany to India, central banks to sovereign wealth funds. Why trust London with such treasure? Legacy. Since the 18th century, when the bank became the world's first true central bank, it has offered unparalleled security. Vaults 40 feet below ground, encased in concrete and steel, patrolled by elite guards and surveilled by MI5. In a digital age of cyber threats and geopolitical storms, physical gold demands physical fortitude, and no one fortifies like Britain. This arrangement hums along peacefully in normal times, a symbiotic dance where London earns fees and prestige for its stewardship. But what if the world fractures? Imagine a global cataclysm, world war, economic meltdown, or the unraveling of alliances. Suddenly that foreign gold becomes a king's ransom, physically untouchable from afar. Britain could invoke force majeure, citing emergency powers to safeguard the assets, effectively nationalizing them under the Union Jack. The math is merciless. $400 billion in gold, right there beneath the Thames, under British soil and law. What recourse do distant owners have? A lawsuit in The Hague? Diplomatic protests? History scoffs at such illusions. The precedents are etched in the annals of betrayal, each a cautionary echo. Flashback to 1940, as Nazi panzer divisions overran France, Winston Churchill's government ordered the Bank of England to freeze £200 million in French gold reserves, assets Paris had deposited for safekeeping. London justified it as wartime necessity. France in chaos could only watch as their bullion funded Britain's defiance. Then the 1956 Suez Crisis. Egypt's President Nasser nationalized the canal, prompting Britain and France to seize Egyptian accounts and assets in London, crippling Cairo's economy in retaliation. Closer to the revolutionary fires after the 1917 Bolshevik uprising, Tsarist Russia's gold, shipped to British banks for WW1 loans, vanished into limbo. The Soviet Union clamored for its return, but London demurred, citing unsettled debts and ideological rifts. Those tons remain unclaimed to this day. And in our era, 2020 saw the bank refuse Venezuela's plea to repatriate 31 tons valued at $1.8 billion, deeming Nicolas Maduro's regime illegitimate amid U.S.-backed sanctions. One nation's crisis became another's vaulted opportunity. These aren't footnotes in dusty ledgers, they're blueprints for power in an unstable world. Today, as tensions simmer, from U.S.-China trade wars to Russia's invasion of Ukraine and frozen Russian assets totaling $300 billion, the specter of gold seizures looms larger. Central banks are hoarding gold at record rates. China's reserves have surged 30% in a decade. India's imports hit all-time highs. Why? Diversification from the dollar, yes, but also a hedge against precisely this vulnerability. If trust erodes, the 5,134 tons in London become a powder keg. Nations like Venezuela or even allies could find their reserves weaponized, tipping fragile balances toward conflict. For the everyday investor, it's a wake-up call. In a system where 80% of global gold trade flows through London, your pension fund, your jewelry, your national economy, all ride on the whims of this enduring empire. Step into the Bank of England Museum and the illusion shatters. Visitors line up to heave a 27-pound gold bar, feeling its unyielding heft, a tactile nod to permanence in a fleeting world. Britain may have surrendered the sun never sets colonies from India to Australia, but it forged a subtler dominion, an empire of influence built on reputation rather than rifles. It doesn't hoard the most gold. With just 310 tons, it ranks low among giants like the US or Germany. Yet by setting the twice-daily price, enforcing the delivery standards, and cradling the world's bullion, London pulls the strings. Contracts may be inked on paper, alliances sworn in halls of power, but gold? It obeys gravity and geography. In the end, as the old adage whispers, possession is 9/10 of the law. While the global order holds, Britain plays the gracious host. But should the lights flicker out, that vault beneath London ensures the empire endures, its golden heart beating eternal. What secrets might it guard next? The real question isn't how much gold Britain owns, it's how much of the world's it controls. And in finance, control is the ultimate currency.